When the disaster strikes, it will be the dogs that warn us. Good morning, YouTube. I'm Gordon, and you're watching Northwest Prepared. We try to prepare you for the biggest disaster that will befall the United States. The largest earthquakes in the world happen on subduction zone. Alaska, 1969. Chile, 1960. We remember Japan, 2011. And Sumatra in 2004. Thousands of people lost their lives in these earthquakes and the following tsunamis. But could the same thing happen here in the Pacific Northwest? And the answer is yes. In the 1980s, we discovered that what we thought was a nice, quiet seismic zone here in Washington and Oregon in the Pacific Northwest was in fact sitting on top of a megathrust subduction zone. Approximately every 250 years, the megathrust zone ruptures and produces a 9.0 or greater earthquake. The last one was January 27th, 1700. Your math is not wrong. It has been over 320 years since the last earthquake. We're due. When the disaster strikes, it will be the dogs that warn us. It will be a day like any other day. You may have gone to work, your spouse may be working from home, your children are in school or daycare, and suddenly, beneath your feet, the North American plate loses its grip on the Juan de Fuca plate, and they slip. We will not feel the initial pressure wave that goes past under our feet, but the dogs will, and they'll start barking and howling, while the humans look around and wonder, what's wrong with Fluffy? What's wrong with Fido? About 30 seconds later, they'll get their answer as the first seismic waves hit and the shaking begins. It'll be gentle at first, but very quickly ramp up in intensity, and thus begins the longest 8 minutes of your life. Objects that are not secure will fall to the floor. Pictures will fall off of the wall. Your television will tip over. Within 30 seconds of the shaking starting, the power will go out, and if the earthquake happens at night, disaster will unfold in pitch darkness. In Seattle, Washington, and Portland, Oregon, there are over 3,000 buildings built with unreinforced masonry block. These buildings will collapse, trapping or immediately killing their occupants. Houses will be damaged. There will be fires, chemical spills, water main breaks, flooding. There will be landslides. Bridges and roads will be damaged. And I'm not just talking the large bridges that cross the major rivers such as the Columbia, the Cowlitz, and the Willamette rivers. I'm talking about the smaller rivers that cross over your neighborhood, rivers and streams that you drive over every day and don't even notice. Communities will be separated. Over 7,000 people are expected to immediately be dead. And according to FEMA Director Kenneth Murphy, in a New York Times interview in 2015, his assessment said, "Our operating assessment is that everything west of Interstate 5 is toast." But that was just the beginning. The worst is yet to come. For people living on the coast, you have exactly 15 minutes to head for high ground. Do you know your tsunami evacuation route? I hope so, because offshore, the earthquake has triggered a 30-foot tsunami, and it is racing towards shore and will be here in 15 minutes. If the beach is full of tourists during the summer, tourists who are not aware of the danger, they will most likely be standing around laughing and saying, "Oh, wasn't that fun? Big earthquake." Or they'll be staring at wide mouth at the damage that the earthquake caused. Don't try to explain it to them. Just yell run and start heading for high ground. So when the tsunami hits, buildings that were damaged by the earthquake will now be destroyed. by the wave as it washes inland. Cars, boats, everything will be destroyed, washed away, washed out to sea. As the wave recedes and the shaking is stopped, 7 million people will have been affected. They will face the reality of the aftermath. 13,000 people will be killed outright. Even more if this happens in the summer and the beaches are full. 27,000 will be in need of immediate medical attention. 1 million people will suddenly find themselves homeless. 2.7 million people will be in need of immediate food and water. And as the survivors look around, they're going to find that there is no electricity. There's no running water. There's no natural gas. The roads will be cracked and broken and impassable in many places from landslides. Bridges will have been damaged and be impassable. Cell phone and internet service will not be available. Over-the-air radio and television will be operating, perhaps for a little while, on emergency generators. More importantly, gas and diesel fuel will suddenly be in short supply. You see, 90% of the gasoline and diesel fuel that is used in Oregon and Washington is refined in refineries in the Puget Sound areas. These refineries will be damaged or destroyed and possibly be on fire, and no fuel will be able to be produced. Furthermore, a pipeline ships this fuel down from Puget Sound to the Portland, Oregon area. That pipeline will be damaged and will not be able to deliver fuel to Portland. Doesn't matter, there will be nowhere to put it. The tank farm that stores the fuel sits on sandy soil along the Willamette River. The tanks holding the valuable diesel and gasoline will collapse and fall into the Willamette River. We won't even mention the environmental catastrophe that will cause. But the only fuel available will be the fuel in the tanks of your vehicles. Groceries, bottled water, unavailable except for what you have. The grocery stores will be damaged. Anything they had to potentially sell you will be fallen onto the floor and destroyed. You may be lucky and find your house is still standing, but most people will discover their houses are destroyed or too dangerous to live in. Aftershocks will be a problem. Falling debris in your house will be a problem. And if you think the situation is bad, consider that it can go on for at least 3 months. Most of the emergency management departments say that it will be 3 to 4 months before electricity is restored just in the metro areas. Out on the coast, 6 months to a year before power can be restored. Gas and running water, similarly affected, could take 3 to 6 months to be restored. Groceries, ice, water, all need to be brought in from somewhere. The Portland airport is not going to be able to be used. Seattle is in much better shape. The SeaTac airport will be usable for flying in relief supplies. If you live in Portland or anywhere along the Willamette Valley, Portland, Vancouver, Washington, Salem, Eugene, etc., the only airports that will be available will be on the east side of the Cascades. FEMA is planning on using Redmond as their supply point to bring supplies in, and then they're going to depend on trucks to bring the food and the water and the relief supplies to 1 million people who are in immediate need of shelter and food and water. The point I'm making is this: you're just going to have to be on your own for a long time. So, as I've said before, please be ready. This is an important thing that you need to prepare for. Be ready. Don't get caught by surprise. Share this video with your friends. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to get more videos. I'm Gordon, and you're watching Northwest Prepared.